Hey everyone, welcome to the Healthy Living with Hoot podcast, where we will bring you some of the most incredible guests and content anywhere. We hope by the end of the show that you feel like you've been inspired, motivated, and that we've added value to your life so that you can be the best version of yourself. So whether you're cooking, cleaning, exercising, or driving, let's do this together in the Healthy Living with Hoot podcast. All right, let's rock and roll. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this much anticipated episode of the Healthy Living with Hoot podcast, where we welcome the incredible, inspiring, and courageous firestarter and Navy brat, coach, author, mental health leader, speaker, cancer survivor, and Virago, Joanne P. McCallie, Coach P for life. When Coach was born, gas was 30 cents a gallon. She was heavily influenced by her incredibly sound-thinking British mother. Her amazing, late, and influential father was often deployed while she was growing up. We both had a truth teller named Renee in our lives that impacted us profoundly. She loves dogs, Carol Burnett, the late Betty White, and swimming. She got her first tattoo at age 53 and believes that people should be over 50 before they are allowed to get a tattoo. She's joking about that, of course, sort of. She once carried the Winter Olympics torch. She drove a cranberry Volvo growing up. She doesn't like cold weather. She's got an MBA, and she met her quiet, unassuming husband, a phenomenal listener, John, at Auburn, and they married on his birthday, August 18th, 1991, so that he would never miss an anniversary. A true Virago in every sense of the word. She can now add incredible author who recently wrote and narrated The Secret Warrior, one of the most impactful and moving books I've ever read that I easily finished in a day and a half, about her journey of living with her newfound superpower, bipolar disorder, which she was diagnosed with when she was 30. She shared her powerfully courageous story around the world, including with one of my favorite people in the entire world, another warrior herself, Robin Roberts of Good Morning America. She believes in stories over stigma when it comes to mental health. She believes in faith over fear. And you can find her on LinkedIn and on Twitter and Instagram at Coach P for life. And that's the letter P and the number 4. Coach, a incredibly warm welcome. Truly honored that you're here with us today in the Healthy Living with You podcast to share your amazing story.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike. And it's great to see you. That's quite an introduction. That's the best introduction I've ever had. And I've been on at least a million of these podcasts. So I'm thrilled to be here.
Well, we pride ourselves on a lot of things, and thank you for the kind words. I'm curious, there's so much to unpack, and I know you just said that you've talked about a lot of things many times before, but some of this is relatively new in the last couple of years since the book came out. But let's rewind to your childhood. To feel supported as a young girl back then is just amazing.
But I consider myself a Title IX baby relative to the opportunities that were created by pioneering women who really were without, you go back to the Pat Summitt stories of driving the bus and those types of things. And I benefited from that tremendously as I was coming out in 1983. And so lots of support, lots of funding. We still did bus everywhere at Northwestern. There weren't any charter flights or anything like that, but things had come a long way by then.
Yeah. So, Coach, you're having a lot of success professionally. You had played college basketball, and you're at Maine. And you later went on to coach at Michigan State and Duke, obviously. But let's talk a little bit about what happened at the age of 30, because that's when some things transpired, where you thought you were going down a path of, emotional highs and, hyper focused, and, people around you noticed some things that were not you being your normal self. So tell everyone 4 years into your Maine experience, what transpired. We don't want to oversimplify it in a couple of sentences, because this whole thing takes time. As I know, having lost my father to suicide when I was 9, and Vale knows, having thought about suicide and being in the mental health space herself and advocating in this space in a way that only we can understand now because of the things that we've been through.
After I gave birth at 29, a year after giving birth, I had my first episode, a manic episode. And it hit me like someone, hit me from behind. I had no idea what it was. This was many, many years ago. There was so many stigmas. Nobody even could name anything. And I really was able to, in front of the team, pull it off because it was marked by incredible enthusiasm and sort of this belief in them where they were just, exhilarated by sort of the power of this, mania, except then I began not to sleep at all. And so then I couldn't concentrate. My husband and friends were saying I was acting differently and they didn't know what to do with me. Actually, my husband drove me to my gynecologist and to say, I don't know what to do with this. I was in the office. They made a judgment on me and decided to get me to the hospital. The only way they could get me there was basically to not tell me where I was going. And then at one point, I thought it was John who needed the help. So I became sort of empathetic and said, okay, well, then let's go to the hospital. Except when we got there, I was on the floor playing with kids' toys. I thought it would be a fabulous idea to play with kids' toys. I mean, to me, at my state of mind, it was fun. I was full of life and zest. And my husband just watched me do this. And then they pulled me upstairs. And, much to my huge surprise, when I went into the ward there, the door shut and John was not inside. And they told him to go. I tried to protect myself.
Well, you went into survival mode,
that's a good way to say it. And yeah. I fought physically in a way that I don't know if I've ever fought anybody. I believe there was, a couple of guys and two nurses. And they were having a terrible time getting to me. And unfortunately, that's the way it was then. It's different now, I think, with better psychiatry and better communication and a way to talk people down, cognitive behavioral therapy, not to mention medicine, but they finally got me. They finally got me and gave me medicine that put me out. And then I was starting my path back. I missed 2 weeks of October coaching with my team. And I write in the book that the book is about loyalty in a great regard. Amy was a part of some of it, more my second episode than my first, but they stuck by me when parents were questioning, when administration was questioning. I was told to tell my team that I was coming back from exhaustion, which I was exhausted, but I wasn't able to tell and share. And we went on to win so many championships. It just kind of went away until my second episode.
I thought of something, Val, that Stephanie Arnold, who came on the show, she had a premonition that she was going to die giving birth to her second child. And her husband didn't believe her. And she did die for 37 seconds. And there's a book about it and there's a movie about it. And she talked about on my show how that affected the relationship of the marriage. Mm-hmm. Because like your husband, he's an economist as well. And he's a numbers person. So you know this better than anyone, that when you're a numbers person, you think a certain way. You're statistically driven, and it's really hard for that person to see things in a different way. So I'm just curious if you because I didn't hear you talk about this in the book. You mentioned your husband a couple of times in the book, but not often. And he was the last person you thanked at the end of the book, which is as powerful as anything that you said in the book, as it speaks to what he means to you and what he's meant to you during this entire journey. But can you expound upon what you felt going forward in terms of trust and what you learned about trust when somebody closest to you did something that was probably as gut-wrenching as anything that he's ever done, and then you guys having to reconcile that afterwards, and then what that taught you, how that made you a better coach? I don't know if that made sense. I thought about it on the fly. I was sort of thinking out loud. So if it sounded jumbled, I apologize. But I feel like trust is such an important thing, not only on the court, but off. And so even if it felt like a step backwards, did you grow from that? Even though you were so mad at him, you wanted to kill him?
Yeah, I think that's an important concept, the breaking of a trust and understanding how to build trust. I think that's important in life. Life is very complicated. And yes, I was furious. I wouldn't deal with him in any way for a while. And he continued to be his scientific self. And he understood that my brain chemistry was not right. And he didn't hold it against me. He didn't say, well, why did you speak that way to me when I visited you in the hospital? And, he quickly forgot all that. And I write in the book that I was so fortunate to have a scientific thinker, A is A kind of thing. He thought, well, we have a brain, we have a brain that needs help. It's no different than a liver or a kidney or a heart. It needs help. And so he was an advocate for brain health long before it was popular or studied. I remember him telling me about lithium being on the periodic table of elements, and kind of that concept of, well, your body needs this for some reason, you're lacking, and lithium has been a big part of the medicine I take. And I am very grateful because it's a very good medicine if you can take it. And so I was able to have a baby, our second child, while taking lithium. And that's a whole different story. And there's almost no research about lithium in utero and what that's like for mothers. And I think that's interesting as well, what's not studied or how we need to catch up.
And the significance of that was because you wanted to breastfeed, and you had reservations about that because of your fear of impacting your son.
Right. And at this time, today, it's come out, a Harvard study is that you absolutely can nurse, you can do it. And it's proportional. And, I also wonder about my son as he was exposed to lithium throughout his, throughout the pregnancy. But what's really interesting about Jack is he's the smartest in the family by far.
As you were calling for him earlier to fix the microphone problem.
Yeah, Jack. Did you hear me say that?
Yes, I need Jack.
He helped me with the computer writing the book. I mean, he deserves big props for what he did. And now he's a computer science major at Northwestern and knocking it out. But I laugh at it because as a mother, I worried so much about him. How would he be? What would happen to him? He's a great athlete. He can dunk at 5'11". And
wow.
He can put it down. And anyway, he's the smartest. I feel like we're a fairly smart family, but he's at another level.
Wow. And he's a senior manager for Coach Collins there at Northwestern. It should be noted.
Yes.
Oh man, that's where do you think he gets his hops from?
Oh, come on.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
How do you view that now versus, back in the 90s and early 2000s?
Well, I will say that being diagnosed and recovering from it and being in remission for about 24 years, and there is a word, remission, where you actually are doing great, taught me a lot about intuition and communication and seeing things with different female athletes, issues that they were dealing with, anxiety, eating disorders, coaching a young lady bipolar on my team. You could really sense things in a sixth sense kind of way, because I think that you had to hyper-analyze yourself to get to a healthy space relative to taking medicine and to understanding what kind of schedule you needed to do so. So I had 2 episodes at Maine, a manic one, a depressive one, and that was just darn right silly because I stopped taking my meds thinking I was a know-it-all and I was feeling better. Val shaking her head, and it was just so ridiculous. And I also didn't tell anybody. I knew that if I told anybody, there'd be this big upset. So I said, I'm feeling great. And I can remember the psychiatrist saying to me, because I asked her about it, she said, if you go off your meds, you're going to have another episode at the worst time possible that you could ever imagine. And sure enough, it was in season, in February, where I let my team down by not being on medicine. This time I wasn't out, but I wasn't myself for a good week. We lost a game because I wasn't clear to them. I had to sit them down and admit to them that I had not taken my meds.
Wow.
And that episode never needed to happen. And so after that episode, I became, just fortified in a way to take my meds. And I talk about this when I get on the speaking circuit. I talk about taking meds a lot. And as athletes, we don't like to take meds because we feel like we're putting a foreign substance into our body that could complicate things. And I knew I was better with my meds. My brain was better. I was better. And I was a better coach. And I really was a better coach. I kind of went from being that more authoritarian as a younger coach.
Right.
Because you're trying so hard to show that you can do it. Right. So everyone needs to line up really quickly. And then you move to a player's coach over time. And then sometimes you're a combination depending upon the circumstance. But then I had a 24-year right through Michigan State and right through Duke. I left Duke in July 1 of 2020. And I had a mammoth episode in June of 21. I mean, out of nowhere, on vacation. And the scary thing was I was on my meds.
Was this a new cocktail?
No, it wasn't. Well, they had to find a new cocktail, but basically,
wow.
But see, you got to roll it back. July 1, I'm out from coaching, which is hugely impactful in my life.
Right.
My father dies.
Right.
And I get a hysterectomy.
Right. Yeah.
All of that. And I have that cancer scare. So all of that. And my doctors have been kind of looking at this because I was taking the right med cocktail and they think the hysterectomy took me out relative to my brain chemicals, my hormones and all of that. But I tell you what, that one was brutal and it was unfair. I can say all I want about unfairness in life. My kids were exposed to it. My older kids now, because they've all grown up by now. Jack was 20 at the time. 21 at the time. And Maddie was 26 or 27. And so they had to see mom in a different concept. And it was very protective, the isolated episode. I was not even in the state of North Carolina. But that might be some other story. I've not told the story very much. It's not in the book because it happened.
Right. It was after.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that happened. Well, your kids got to see a more authentic version of their mom.
Yes.
I'm sure it's helping them to be more empathetic and thoughtful and compassionate in that space.
Yes. And I think they were beginning to wonder what manic depressive disorder was, bipolar. One time I got on to Jack because one of his friends had said a teacher was bipolar, meaning describing the personality of the teacher, and I said, Jack, don't you ever do that. You need to teach education, and you can't call the weather bipolar. You can't call people bipolar unless they've been diagnosed and they're willing to share that with you. And I just can't stand when language is misused and makes things seem very trite when they're not.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's just so interesting about some of the preconceived notions we have about the medicine. And also when people are misdiagnosed, that can really send things into complication. So many people are diagnosed with depression that are in fact bipolar. Like that is a lot. I wish there was more of a study on that, because you're looking about 5% of the population is bipolar, but I'm not sure I believe that based on what I've witnessed at various schools and situations.
Well, and it sort of brings me up to the next point, which is influencers being more public about this. You two, Liz Cambage, DeMar DeRozan, Kevin Love, and there's others, Meta World, Sandiford, Artest, and so this is what we need, is to normalize it, demystify it, as uncomfortable as it is, especially in the Black and brown communities, because, there's still a stigma there in particular. And so I think it's amazing that we're talking about this in a way that, you two just described, because it's so important.
It is. And for me, there's a little bit of a sidebar with coaches. Coaches are desperately afraid to come out, whether it's, you think about it, there's so many things, I mean, that people try to say or do about coaches. There's women in coaches that I'm worried about. You know, if you raise your voice or demanding, you're one thing, but if a guy's coach, you know, rips a woman, then he's fine. You know, there's a lot of double standard situations. And
and you faced this early on too, because somebody in a blog said something and it came out, you know, not because of your own volition. And so you had to navigate that space of, you know, somebody outing you, and it wasn't something that you were ready to talk about. And so then you had to, you know, deal with that. So that's frustrating, right?
Yeah.
God.
It was welcome to coaching in the triangle. I mean, one of the first blogs is, did you know she was on lithium? I have no idea how anybody would ever find that out. And because your records are pretty, you know, tight there. So anyway, it's part of coaching in the triangle. But
yeah,
at the same time too, again, you worry about people making judgments. You can't worry about it too much because you are who you are authentically. Yeah. And I was extremely passionate coach, demanding coach, and a fair coach. But if you didn't hustle or work extra on your free throws, I mean, I'll let you know it. Like, you know, you got to, you know, prepare. And, you know, whether it was Michigan State or Duke, Maine, wherever I was, I actually got softer through my years of coaching. Toughest at Maine, very tough at Michigan State, because we drove through 5 years to get to that national title. And at Duke, I think tough, but I also think pulled back a little bit because of the lack of support. You know, those 20% of the people that were just very sad that Gail had left and made sure they weren't going to support me from the very beginning. And so there was all that dynamic, which kind of holds you back a little bit. And you got to watch yourself more. And I think that's not a great space to be in. But when you think about behavior, people want to judge you. You know, like they want to say, oh, she's aggressive, so she must have been bipolar in that moment. And all I can say is the disorder is much more sophisticated than that. And it doesn't quite work that way, especially if you're on meds. And when I say on remission, I followed a real regimen through my time as coaching and did not waver from it. And I think we give up a lot. I mean, I don't go out, drink alcohol. You keep a steady diet, you exercise, you're committed in a way that a lot of people can't keep that.
Have sleep.
Oh my gosh. And right, you said it, sleep. I mean, I was fortunate enough to be able to afford a sleep number bed. It's the greatest thing ever. I mean, you know, those sleep rings giving you feedback.
Right.
I talk about these things in building this foundation that's not set up yet because we're still pulling in dollars. I want to be able to do that, you know, sleep rings, and communicate about a sleep number and maybe bring the cost down so people can realize that sleep is that important. And your brain, I mean, only 2% of the population can deal with low sleep. Adults need 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night to maximize brain health and physical health and all of that.
Oh, absolutely. And let's not even get into the diet piece and the exercise and movement and, you know, controlling what we can to feed the brain to be able to go in a direction that it needs to go in, let alone other challenges. Mm-hmm. Oh, man, and this pandemic threw that into a loop on top of it.
Oh, gosh. Oh, did it ever? And it provided just another trigger. Right. You know, we talk about triggers that we go through in life, whether it's, you know, having a baby, stress or other things. There are triggers. Some people don't really fire off if they have a protected life with bipolar anyway. I mean, I know I have an undiagnosed family member and she's lived her whole life that way. And I tell you, it's crushing to see what the effects of that can be. That's hard to watch, especially being diagnosed and benefiting from the medicine that I've been able to benefit from.
Coach, you said you were in remission, and I'd never really heard that before with regards to what you're dealing with. But can you talk about that and how the players really helped you in a way that you never thought they would?
Yes, and I think it was marked by the human connection I had with the players. See, being part of a team structure, that those players demand that you're on it. And I mean that in a good way. So I really feel I had 8 years at Maine, And I would say the last 3 years were utter bliss and winning championships. And I was really in my groove. When Michigan State came calling, I also was just so excited to be back in the Big Ten and build that program. And it went so fast that we were just completely immersed in what we were doing. So that occurred. And then Duke was a special job to me. I really was excited about going to Duke. And so again, I think I really worked hard on structure and exercise, and my meds were doing well. I didn't have another child, which might have been a complicating force. So I do feel like I use the term remission loosely because I know it's primarily for cancer and other diseases and problems. But I've been told by some in psychiatry that, yes, you were. And you had worked it for 24 years. I was beginning to think I was not bipolar. I said to John, are we sure this is right? You know, does this make sense? I mean, I think you get more bipolar, like I'm bipolar 1, 2, and probably 3, as they try to develop what exactly that is. But through age, it can get worse.
Oh, no.
And that's something I've read about. And I don't know if that's, true in all studies, but I've read about that possibly. And some people think that that's not always the case, but that you have to really kind of be hyper vigilant as you go into your later part of life. And of course, I had a kidney complication,
right.
Val. My lithium started eating my kidney. So then I had to, pare down there and build back up again, which I was able to do. And that wasn't as serious as we thought it would be. So there's lots of things that we go through. Even life expectancy, if you read about it, it doesn't apply to everybody, but our life expectancy is supposed to be shorter. And I'm not sure what that's all about. Maybe the meds. But I'm like you, Val. I really like taking my standard, lithium and Lamictal is what works for me. But when I have to add to it, like let's say gabapentin or Klonopin, depending upon what's happening with me, I can't stand that. I don't want to add anything. But my doctor, if I haven't been sleeping, she adds some things and I don't like it. I still don't like it, even after understanding the disease very well.
And we used to call it manic depression. And so now it's, the technical term is bipolar. But what are some of we don't want to, say this is true for everyone, but what are some of the things that you encounter when you're manic versus, in the depressed state? And obviously, like I said, it differs for everybody, and always check with your, psychiatrist before, you ever make any decisions. But maybe someone was listening and they say, wow, I've been having those kinds of things happen for 10 years. What are some signs for them to look for? Lack
of sleep. Okay. You start getting excited about life, wanting to work at night, thinking that you're invincible. And so sleep is a kickoff. One thing I can give you is I was driving and the radio was playing, and it was as if every song meant something to me and was actually being played for me. At one point, I thought the TV was talking to me, and I had to deal with that with one of my recruits, Jamie Cassidy, who still went to Maine, and she was the one who was the 6'4" post player. Your speech becomes very, very quick. Your thinking is really quick. I mean, I was certainly very smart. I mean, I aced the calculus. I aced the calculus test in a way that I was more high strung, but I didn't know it. I think the hardest thing, Mike, is that people treat you so differently. You sometimes have to go back. You have to go back and people you've offended, or, you have to go back and explain yourself, right? You have to go back and try to make amends, except it's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's not like you did something that was your fault, I guess. I mean, it's a brain issue. And if your brain is sort of shorting out, I guess if you have a brain stroke. Okay, if you have a stroke, people are empathetic and they send you flowers. They send you food to your home and they take care of you. Okay. Well, a brain disorder like bipolar, many things happen and everybody runs away. There's no flowers. There's no food scent. And even people that were your dearest friends become sort of spooked by what they saw, what they witnessed, what they felt. There's no apology that works. I've seen people treat me differently in administration. I've seen people back way off. People are fearful. They can't get over it. And I think that's one of the incredible things about bipolar manic depression that is so unfair, is how it just hangs on. And some people just judge you in ways that are inaccurate, ill-placed, and you have to live with that.
And so, well, that's what you're doing now is speaking out, not only with your book, but you were supported in an event there in the state of North Carolina to talk about this very thing. And you're doing this, worldwide. And it should be noted that, worst case scenario for people is suicide, is taking their life. And like my father did, and he was mentally ill when I was 9. And, it impacts people, so if you see a sign in somebody, just tell them that you love them and that you care about them. And, maybe that'll be enough to get them the help that they need.
Yes, I've had many situations already, whether it was Mississippi State or Bowdoin or the places that I've spoken, to have students come up to me. And I speak corporate as well, but boy, when you speak with students, it's amazing. And I have to say, Mike, I take a coaching approach. Because I'm a coach with this diagnosis, I kind of am able to push the envelope more.
Right.
And so, you got this. Like, when I've gotten a few calls or conversations, kids have said something like, I'm bipolar and I don't want it. And I could say to them, well, wait a minute, you football player? Yeah. I said, you must not be a very good football player. The kid's like, oh yeah, I'm a great football player. I said, no, you're not. If you were, you could handle this. So I'm able to kind of throw it back a little bit, because I think it's important for us to recognize that people have to be motivated. And sometimes it's hard, it's tough love, that you got to say, look, and this guy, we talked to, he ended up talking to me a lot. I don't do individual stuff. I'm not a doctor at all. This just happened to be a friend of a friend. And it turns out he's now, he ran the Boston Marathon. He got over because people could hear about, yeah, you take your meds. Yeah, this is a pain. Yeah, you do this, you do that. And on the other side of it, when we talk about kids too, and adults even, you have to come across of saying that suicide is a hostile act. Like it's not to be celebrated with teddy bears. I mean, like to me, when some of these events have occurred on campus and they've stopped classes, I want them to have classes, to go to class, put that Ted Lasso box in the middle and have people throw in their concerns or throw in their experiences, and have each professor have to dedicate that day to brain health. And so anyway, I have a different approach to what currently is done. And I feel like we've got to take a stand. Yeah. And I've thought of taking my life. I've thought of it. And I again, we come from a place of experience. And so I think we have a different view, at least I do, relative to coaching and how to motivate and say some things that are direct to young people.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And really, people just need to know that they're not alone a lot of times.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, we could talk about this for hours. All right, let's get to the rapid fire, and then I'm sure we'll unpack a couple of things in there. All right. So in the old days, Coach, we used to write letters to recruits.
Yes.
Now, not so much. But Coach K actually does still write letters, I hear, on his former players' birthdays, which I found fascinating. Rashawn McCallie was on the show and he talked about it, and Jay Billis as well. So having said that, do you prefer phone calls to recruits, in-person visits, handwritten letters, or texting?
In-person visits by far.
Of course. Yeah. Well, who made you the best dinner?
The late, probably, there's been many, but my late Stacy Perini, who passed of breast cancer, one of my players passed.
Yeah.
And her mother, Debbie Perini, put on quite an Italian show there. So great memories, fond memories.
Oh, man. When someone makes you a part of the family on a recruiting visit, that just changes you forever. Oh, that's amazing. Okay, so you met Larry Bird and Magic Johnson on the same day.
Yeah.
How was that when Larry brought his daughter? Talk about that.
Oh, it was incredible. In practice, kind of see out of the corner of your eye.
Try to act like everything's like, yeah, we're good.
Yeah, I mean, I've been, and the funny thing is, I've made jokes to my players that I don't care who walks in our gym. I don't care what goes on. And so Larry Bird comes in, and actually everyone keeps going. And so I go over and talk to him, and the team is still practicing while I talk to him. And then finally, I sort of break down. I'm like, would you like to meet the team? And he said yes. And so I stopped practice, and the kids got a kick out of that. They were grateful, first of all. And then they were like, yeah, coach, I guess we do stop practice. I said, yeah, for Larry Bird. I wore his number 33. I wore it, loved it.
Oh, yeah. Man. So I said in the intro, we would talk about the legendary coach, Dean Smith from North Carolina, why I mentioned him in the intro. Can you talk about the conversation you had with him?
Oh, incredible. Whistler, British Columbia, taking a gondola up to the top of the mountain to have a wonderful dinner sponsored by Nike. And we were inside the facility. It was beautiful. And he was really drawn to my husband because of my husband's brother was a Moorhead Scholar at Carolina. Wow. And he was very impressed by that. And so we began talking, and he whispered, to me, I was sort of sad about not being able to win that national championship in 2005. Mm-hmm. And he said, well, you went to the Final Four. He said, my Final Four, we lost in the semis. And I was like, really? And he said, that puts you ahead of me. I was like, whoa. I mean, I was floored by that statement. And then he admitted that we were his favorite team, that your women's team. Yeah. And not to tell anybody at Carolina.
That's fascinating. What a great story.
Yeah.
So you and your husband both love seafood, especially when you lived in Maine. And I was in Baltimore, and they have a great place out here in San Diego. So if you come out here, you and Val, it's on me. It's called the Crab Hut. It is amazing. So did you ever find a place in East Lansing or Durham that compared to the Maine seafood?
Oh gosh, no.
No way. Not even close.
Easy. Yeah. No.
So you used to eat at Pat's Pizza, especially when you had late nights in the office at Maine. You ever find a pizza place that compared to Pat's?
Oh, better in New York City. It's right by that garden. I just went there, and I was just speaking in Manhattan, but there's nothing like New York pizza. My dad is from New York, and there's nothing like it. Sorry, nothing like it.
We didn't talk too much about your dad. You want to share a little bit about what an amazing person he was serving our country?
Yeah, he special pilot. I was a great pilot for many years. I really enjoyed his Navy experience, and then he went to the private sector. He was the dad that was rebounding the ball to me all the time and allowed me to swear and stuff when I got upset and I missed. I was pretty intense, like now. I was pretty ticked off when I missed. And Dad took me to lunch on game days and took me to the gym and rebounded. And I'm very much like my dad, I think, in a lot of ways. And it was really a blow. He was not well in some ways, but I just visited him. And, losing a parent is probably one of the single most difficult experiences of anyone's life. Of course, not knowing a parent could be equally so, but losing a parent. So that was a rough go of it. After leaving Duke, I got hit hard on a couple things. And anyway, he's a good man.
You had him for a long time. Special person for sure. I love learning about him in the book.
Yeah.
Okay, so a quick story. I won't tell you the full. So I walked on the campus of Duke for the first time about 15 years ago. Now it was Christmas break, and so this was about 2009, I think, Christmas time, something like that. So I went to visit my former player, who was playing at Presbyterian, and they had just gone D1, and they were playing at North Carolina the next day. But I had a night to walk on the Duke campus, so I was looking around. I was like, where is it? Because all the buildings look the same. And like it's next to the rec center. And I'm like, that's it? And I was like blown away. So I was like, oh, I got to get inside. So I checked the first door right in front on the side there where it says, the name. locked. I go around the side. I'm looking around. There's nobody on campus. Everyone's gone. So I check the second door on the far side. Locked. God damn it. So I go around the back side of the building. And, you know, my heart's racing right now, right? Because I'm like, if anyone sees me shaking this door, I'm going to get arrested. So I open the door and it's open. I was like, holy shit. So I go inside. I'm like listening to make sure no one's in it. It's pitch black everywhere. And so the only lights were like these like emergency lights, I guess they were, when you walked in there, and, you know, the trophy cases. And I was just like, you know, and I followed college basketball big time back then, right? Parade All-Americans and, you know, Street and Smith and all that stuff. And so I go and sit on the upper level, and there's only one light in the place. And you know this, right? And so you have the rafters, right? And the lights are in the rafters. Emergency lights are in the rafters, and it's shining down on Coach K court and the D right in the middle. That's it. And I'm sitting there by myself for 30 minutes. And it was the most surreal, spiritual experience I've ever had in sports, besides standing next to Tiger Woods when he mishit a shot on the first hole of the 2008 US Open. And everyone was quiet when he hit the shot. But it was, I mean, I can't even imagine. I haven't been to a game when the fans are there. So I have another question, but I got to ask you, because, you know, you had so much success at both Michigan State and Duke. What's it like in Cameron Indoor? Like, oh my God.
Hard to explain, as you felt. Obviously smaller, tremendous advantage, right? Because it's smaller. And when it's packed, it's just like the floor vibrates, you know,
right.
It feels like it vibrates with the fans. And it's obviously a special, iconic place to play. And some people argue the very best anywhere. And I would say it's pretty spectacular. And it's because it's throwback. There's no advertising on the walls. There's no, I mean, I know there are plenty of facilities out there that are larger and all those things, but to me, it's so collegial.
Oh,
it's so collegial and so historic. And that's what I love about it.
Okay, but the fans, they're so smart. They'll jingle keys, they'll hold up newspapers. Like, did you ever like stop coaching for a second and look and be like, oh my God, like, are they really doing that today?
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. You're so focused. I mean, you're so in the tunnel, but there's no question their creativity they score very well in creativity, and very devoted, and have been devoted to Coach K for years and years, except for his early years where everybody gave him a hard time. But that didn't last very long.
Nope.
So it's pretty amazing tradition. Yeah.
What's it like to see the beds and pitching tents outside of Shesheskyville?
I can't believe they do it, because again, going back to sleep and comfort, and, you know, you think about it, we gave donuts and went out there and wanted them to go to the women's games and all of that. But I can't believe that tradition. And it's freezing often. Freezing. It's just, God. Yeah. Complete devotion.
What about Coach K and Coach Izzo's support for you?
Tremendous. Izzo was great. We went to the same Final Four. And amazing. And that was incredible. And Coach K and we came 3 points away from going to the same Final Four. The guys made it. We lost to Brittany Griner by 3. And I step back sometimes and think about working with the Hall of Famers and the fact that I almost went to 2 Final Fours, one with each, how interesting that would be. And I'm always one to embrace coaches. I've never had trouble with guys coaches. I kind of, you know, I hold my own. I say what I got to say. Both of them are like big brothers to me. But we had, I'm not going to say arguments. We had differences of opinion and things. And that's life in the fast lane. But I think that I really enjoyed both of them, particularly Coach K and his Army background. With my Navy background, there was definitely a connection there. Are
you reading any great books right now that resonate with you?
Let's see. I'm poking at Brene Brown's new book, but I can't say I'm reading it. I'm just kind of going through it right now. So I love Brene Brown, and she's terrific. I do a lot of books on tape.
Me too, including yours.
Yeah. Oh, did you?
I loved it. I loved it.
How did they sound?
You sounded amazing. Yeah, you really did. It made it. I know some people like to feel the book and turn the pages, but I like listening to people that narrate their own books.
Oh, it was
It
great.
was
And
amazing.
yeah, Robin Roberts' older book that I never read. I'm going back to that. So there's other stuff, and my books on tape are more for like Kristen Hanna's books. I've gone through all of those, like Firefly Lane, and
Hmm.
I like to step outside the box sometimes and just be like entertained.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Did you ever read The Road Less Traveled?
I did read that, but you know what? I read that a long time ago.
Me too. I would be interested to know how it would resonate with me now, because there is a
Yeah,
spiritual component to it that I
yeah,
that that would resonate with you probably differently than me. But it was more in the second book, further along the road less traveled, because he didn't really indicate it as much in the first book.
yeah.
His relationship with Christ and that kind of thing. So it was interesting. And I read Viktor Frankl's book too.
Oh,
Obviously,
meaning?
yeah, Man's Search for Meaning. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
man. I can't say enough about that one. Yeah.
Oh, so two words you talk about in your book: surrendering versus succumbing. So can you let everyone know like the difference between those two? I already know, but it's such an important distinction,
Gosh,
right?
yes, it is. I feel like, I think that, succumbing, if I have this right, I hadn't read my book in a while, but, succumbing to me, I mean, that's more has the negative connotation of
Right.
giving in, right? Just
Yeah.
giving in and, and just exasperated, defeated, all of those things. Surrender is, I know we talk about it in war and things, surrender, but
Or in Christ.
right, true. I just think that sometimes you have to divert and find yourself in a different way.
So be
And
vulnerable.
yeah, be vulnerable, and I think give away some old habits,
Hmm.
like sort of like almost surrender them and allow yourself to be vulnerable. And I think it allows us to grow. And yeah, I know I've been very vulnerable in many different situations, and I think it's obviously made me stronger in many ways.
You're a true Virago, and it's your superpower now. I know you didn't always feel that way, but man, what a journey. So, last question: if you could have five people at your dinner table, past or present, dead or alive, so what five people would be at your dinner table?
Arthur Ashe.
Oh man, I love it. Tennis player. Yep.
Yeah, I think I would go highly tennis.
Right.
Arthur Ashe,
Martina.
probably. Yeah, actually, it's funny you say Martina. Steffi Graf is who I think. So probably Arthur Ashe and Steffi Graf
Hmm.
mixed with Ayn Rand. That's a
Wow, that's a
powerful
first.
mixture. Probably, I mean, Pat Summitt,
Yeah.
maybe Coach K.
Yeah.
That's kind of
Mix in some people you know and you don't know. That'd be an interesting table for sure.
that's an interesting table.
Wow. Oh, I love it. Well, anything else that you want to share with people about, where you're headed, where, in the next 5 years, and where people can
Yeah.
find your stuff, and you have some amazing things in the background. Your
Yeah.
book, and who's in the over your right shoulder with a fist pump, a woman of color there. People are going to be listening sometimes to this, not watching it.
Wait, who?
So you have your gold medal there, but then on the shelf to the left of that, you have a woman with a fist. Yeah,
Oh,
right
that's
up.
Ruthie. Oh, that's Ruthie.
Oh,
That's Ruthie Bolton.
oh yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah,
wow,
yeah. That's Ruthie and her mighty self. Yep, she's
oh, that's
special.
amazing. You have your gold medal there. Is that the national championship game?
Yeah, that's tipping off.
Oh,
Yep,
amazing.
yep. But getting back to what we're working on, it's Team Secret Warrior. I'm a
Yes.
full-time philanthropist right now.
Yep.
I don't have the foundation established. I'm bringing in the monies. I do not take a salary. I speak many places. And yes, I charge money, except if it's a pro bono situation, because those monies are going to the future Secret Warrior for Brain Health Foundation. Right now, it's Coach P for Life. That's, like you said, number 4. That's for Final Four. That's why it's a 4. And I'm on all social.
Wait, I want to say something about that because I was waiting for the right time to say something. I don't know if you ever thought about this, but you said you have mood disorder for life at one point in your book. And I just want to throw that in there that the number 4 could be that also.
Oh,
Just a thought, because you said it in the book, mood disorder for life, and you went to the final 4. So that's where you said the 4 came from.
Yes.
It could also be mood disorder for life.
Yes.
As well for your Coach P for life. Just a thought. It's
yes. That is totally true. But right now it's Coach P for life on all social. I use LinkedIn for a blog like type of situation. So I write on LinkedIn when things move me to write, and I reach out. I definitely answer DMs. I'm aware to other people
Clearly.
on my social. Yeah.
I was like, she just answered me. Like,
what?
what?
Yeah. And so anyway, I'm really hopeful that I can speak nationwide, worldwide, continue with this, and really spend the next 10 years. I'm 56, and I'd like to have a 10-year plan, have lots of money in that foundation, be something I can maybe pass to my children and they can sort of manage it, and give to projects, give to things that maybe where there are holes in our situation with insurance or otherwise, and there are many holes. Try to work with that and support from the private sector.
Similar to what the V Foundation has done and how it's impacted people internationally and domestically. Oh, so there's 2 4-word phrases that have impacted you tremendously. Be good to you, and it's not your fault, which you talked about earlier. And so those things are so important. You want to either finish with that or talk about your tattoos?
No, I'll finish with that. I mean, it's so important to be good to you. And it comes in so many broad strokes, right? I mean, it could be a book, it could be music, taking a walk, exercise, swimming, lifting weights, yoga, eating well. There are so many ways you can take care of yourself, a favorite movie. And we've got to spend time with that. We've got to know what those things are. So be good to you is really a lifelong commitment. And I mean, just sometimes we don't even realize what that is that we need to do. And what was the second thought? What did you say? Oh, it's not your fault.
It's not your fault. Yeah.
Yes. Emotional words to me from a mentor. First time I heard it was actually when I was long past my diagnoses and really rocking and rolling. I just come out of the national championship at Michigan State. And when I heard those words, I always thought it was my fault. I never could understand how anything like that could happen. And I must have been a part of it. I must have been part of the reason. And when I heard it's not your fault, there was just the biggest exhale and freedom in my life. I'm forever grateful. And I make a point in Secret Warrior to highlight those words.
Oh, man, that was magnificent. Just a magical ride with you today, Coach.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This has been an awesome experience.
All right. Thanks, Coach. We'll talk soon. I'll stay in touch. Much love and respect.
Do I get a copy?
Oh, of course. Are you kidding me?
I got to have it. I want to see us.
Absolutely. I'll send you all that when it's done, Coach. All right. Thanks so much. Thanks for joining us today for this amazing podcast. I truly hope that you felt inspired, motivated, and that we added value to your life so that you can be the best version of yourself. Remember, you can always send us an email to healthylivingwithhoot@gmail.com, and you can always check me out on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Mike Hootner. And take care of yourselves, everyone. Literally. You can always call the Suicide Lifeline in English at 800-273-8255. In Spanish at 888-628-9454. And for anyone who may be deaf or hard of hearing, you can call 800-799-4889. And they are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and 365 days of the year. Thanks for joining us again right here in the Healthy Living with Hoot podcast. Much love, everybody. Peace.